Meow, 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 meow. Hey, folks, this is False. Travis here. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/thisisfalse, and you can follow us on social media at thisisfalsepod, and please do interact with me. I'm lonely. If you could also, you want to email us, you could do that too. You could do that whole thing. You can go thisisfalsepodcast@protonmail.com and enjoy this episode where we introduce Gladys Shaffley to the program to talk about the Pharmacare vote and the NDP being ineffectual and the Liberals being liars. You know, the usual. So yeah, enjoy that, and we'll catch you after. I haven't eaten yet, so.
Yeah, I was going
I'm the only one here who doesn't have a job, so.
I haven't eaten. I was going to come and make pasta, and you said no.
I don't have a kitchen that can handle that right now.
Yeah, that makes two of us. Mo, how's your kitchen?
Yeah, we're coming over to make pasta.
Get over here.
Good, just give us, 8 hours? 10?
No, he's back in Windsor.
Oh, you're not in Ottawa anymore.
Yeah.
I thought you weren't back till
Yeah, I'm
next
here for
week.
the pandemic. No.
Are you?
I forgot the 3-second rule.
Sorry. Are you? So you're back from Ottawa, but what were you doing up there? Just working?
Yeah, I had a bunch of tech stuff because I'm the tech guy, so I had to do some tech, ironically. But I had to do some tech stuff. I had to do some comm stuff, just inter-office stuff. And I did my stuff and then came back and it was all good. But yeah, we're trying to figure out for after the pandemic, because now universities are really one university, and we can talk about this on the show too. But one university said they were going to open in September, and now all of them want to open in September.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Bunch of assholes, honestly.
I mean, it would be really nice if we're in a position where that can happen, but if we're not.
Judging by the fact that we're not going to be vaccinated until after June of 2022, I highly doubt that.
Yup.
Is that the new date?
Well, I'm extrapolating from what they've presented. We could be recording this.
We are.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, well, I'm extrapolating.
This is how we roll.
I'm extrapolating from what they've presented.
Guess
and
we started.
My parents are not going to be vaccinated until this June or later. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole full generation between us. So I'm really not They're like, oh, we'll have it done by September.
Yeah, but you're an essential worker. You'll get it before some people.
Yeah, I'll get that vaccine right around the time that I start working from home.
Okay, listen, dickheads.
That's the cats, not us, by the way, Mo.
Oh, my God.
He doesn't hate us that much.
Go away, both of you. Bye.
I thought we were affectionately called dickheads. I thought that was our nickname for our fans.
Go away.
I like that.
Sorry. So, how you doing, Mo? It's been a little bit. You've been gone for 2 episodes?
Yeah, I was pissed last week. I forget why, but I was super pissed. I think it had something to do with yeah, I don't remember what, but I think Fauxgressives were pissing me off somehow.
That checks out.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
Listen. Good. Every year I just get more and more cynical, and I also am so much more self-confident, so I'm totally chill, but I'm also secretly pissed off inside all the time. And I'm like, is this what all those angry people I used to dealt with felt? This makes perfect sense to me.
Well, you're in your 30s.
Yeah, now it makes
You
sense.
mean us?
Yeah, you're
There's a reason I don't have a job.
You're in your 30s now, right?
No.
No, I'm a year away.
Oh, just wait. Just wait.
I'm not even ready. The back pain I started getting at 26 is what could possibly hit me in the 30s, and I know it's coming. Ugh.
I've been lucky that way.
It's a bad time.
I've been lucky that way with body pain stuff. I haven't really experienced too much of it yet. Sometimes my back will be weird, but
well,
I'm 36, so it's coming. But
I cannot say I have fared the same.
So what are the Fauxgressives saying?
I don't know, man. It's just like I try and have discussions with people, and I try and figure stuff out. I think just like all the stuff I do outside of this podcast just continues to piss me off, which is why please donate patreon.com/thisisfalse so we can all retire and not work at our terrible jobs.
I was literally talking
not
about how I
have to
wanted to
find-
quit the podcast earlier today, so I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do
Travis,
it
how
anymore.
dare you?
I don't want to do it anymore. I hit
What?
a little bit of apathetic depression, and I'm just like, fuck it, fuck everything. I don't even fucking want to do it anymore.
This is our
Well,
new.
Travis, if it makes you feel better,
Go ahead, Mo.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, this podcast is all of our new lifelines. I'm attaching myself to it, so it needs to be very profitable.
Gladys, that's the voice of Gladys Shaffley, or Shaffley,
Shaffley.
Gladys Shaffley.
Yes.
So Gladys is not going to be a regular co-host, but occasional fill-in. We do not have an Ev Irish this week because, well, she's got a job, and that job is causing her to have to work really late and drive from Chatham. So she's, yeah.
She's here in spirit always.
Yeah, she might. There's
Jeez,
like
way to go, Trav.
there's like a slight chance
go,
that she'll
Ev.
just show up at some point. Like, you never know. She might.
I would hope so. I expect more from Ev. Wait, look at her doing stuff that benefit her and make her money. Jeez, way to
Yeah, what a
live,
sellout.
Ev.
Fucking sellout. So
Where's
yeah.
the dedication?
Was there anything specific with the Fauxgressives that had you going? Anything you can talk about?
Yeah, actually, there is something. Okay, so here's the thing, and Twitter is a terrible place, by the way. So don't get on Twitter if you want to just if you want to blow your brains out. Maybe spend some time on Twitter, which is most of us on Twitter want to do anyway. That's kind of the motivation for being on Twitter. Yo, we gotta stop with the suicide jokes though. But we're all just very depressing people. Anyway, we speak from experience. This is not us mocking anything.
Yeah,
Just-
we're
just
not
so you all
really
know.
joking so much as.
You guys should get on
These aren't
Twitter
really
after all this
jokes.
time.
Hey, it's a good
Anyway,
time.
sorry.
But listen, the Fauxgressive Twitter is really amazing. I just keep on seeing people, and it's especially motivated by American politics, but it's Canadian politics too. Biden's bombing Syria, and it's just like all the faux, there were so many people who were like, we're going to support Biden strategically, and then we're going to criticize him and not have him. We're going to criticize all the bad things he's doing. And then I see all these people defending him bombing Syria. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Wait, weren't you going to... But bombing Syria is a bad thing. This is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just disappointed constantly.
Did you see? I think it's Amy Siskin. Did you see the Amy Siskin tweet, Mo? Did you?
No, do tell.
I'm trying to find
God,
it right
lay it
now,
on
so just give me a second here. I'm just trying to, because it made its rounds on the internet. So I'm sure. So Amy Siskind is like Queen Liberal. She's very quintessentially liberal. Why can't I find this? This was like
Is this
going
bigger than
everywhere on the
Neurotandem?
internet. I couldn't. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, it's not bigger than Neurotandem, I don't think. But I can't find it. But it was something along the lines of her being like, "It's so nice to have Biden as president, because now our foreign policy doesn't involve middle school threats, and like it's done with professionalism or something, and competence or something." And it's like, you motherfuckers are so diseased. Like, again, I can't stress this enough. I have much more hate for liberals than I do for conservatives, because that
hey,
kind of
Travis, did you
mindset.
hear?
What's that?
Did you hear, Travis? Americans are no longer tweeting about bombing brown people. Now they're sending official letters saying they're going to bomb brown people. Oh, look at
God.
that. America's back. What?
Just taking
America's
it back. Taking it back, going old school. We are formally declaring it. Here is your letter in the mail. Circa 1945. 39.
It's just a brain disease. It is a brain disease. And it's funny too, because I remember when when the whole first impeachment was happening, And Trump. So the whole thing was about Trump's alleged ties with Russia, right? Which, like, a lot of actual progressives fell for that one, but I'm not trying to brag here, but I was not one of them. I was like, this sounds like a fucking conspiracy theory. It sounds like it's totally fucking made up, and there's nothing that's here that is impeachable or worthy of really even talking about. The fucking Russians did not hand Donald Trump the election. Vladimir Putin did not send his army of fucking troll bots to, like, to do that. It's just, and I felt like a crazy person at the time, being like, this is fucking bullshit. This is fucking Blue Anon. This is what this is. It's Blue Anon. And like now like 2 years later or 3 years later, whatever it is, all these, basically everything's coming out that, like, yeah, no, there was nothing to that. There never was anything to that. Even at the time, there was nothing to that. Robert Mueller even fucking said so in the report. Like, there was nothing to it. These people are fucking diseased. They're blue MAGA. There's no, like, there's a difference in what they believe, but they are just as conspiratorial and out of their minds as conservatives.
I mean, it sounds so good, though, right? Like, a wannabe dictator teams up with ex-KGB leader of Russia. I mean, it's the match made in heaven. It's what everybody wants. It's the final form.
It's like a Sylvester Stallone movie. Come alive.
Exactly.
I mean, it's such a liberal conspiracy theory because, I mean, like, if you look at even the way they tried to weaponize it against Bernie right before the Nevada caucus, right? They tried to say that Bernie's like election success in the primaries was being fueled by the Russians. And it's like, what in the absolute fuck? And like, people believe it.
They did Bernie so dirty.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So dirty.
Remember a year ago how happy we all were, and then fucking Barack Obama came out of the woodwork and kneecapped our boy.
Okay, but
then Pete Buttigieg and Elizabeth Warren held him down as they like face stomped him
basically
repeatedly.
But didn't you know that Pete Buttigieg is absolved of all of his sins now?
He didn't have any sins. What were his sins? According to liberals, I don't mean in general.
You can't see my face, but you can see my face. Well, because he and AOC raised money for Texas when Cruz was cruising around.
Right.
And so Buttigieg he's your boy. He solved the problem. He and AOC, you didn't see that article?
I did, yeah, no, I did.
Okay.
It's just, I'm kind of even getting close to being done with AOC at this point. Because, like, suddenly the kids in cages thing is like, she's like, well, strategically, like, fuck off. Fuck all of you. Fuck every last one of you. You are all useless.
Wait, AOC did that? What?
Yeah, AOC came out and, like, kind of changed what she was saying about the kids in cages thing. And, like, she was doing the liberal thing where she, like, suddenly it's no longer kids in cages and it's just like, well, we're doing our best. Like a lot of the liberals are saying, and they just have no plans of actually changing it. I'm not going to find anything on Google.
Some kids in cages are okay on the DL. If we change the words a bit.
Like a week ago, she was criticizing it, but she was I forget where it was. There was somewhere where she was saying she had changed her language on it significantly, and I was like, you can't trust any of these motherfuckers. You really just can't.
Except our boys in the Green Party. Green Party 2024.
American Green Party.
It's happening.
American
2026. Yeah, American Green Party.
Canadian Green Party.
Dustbin of history.
So speaking of Fauxgressives, do we want to go to the Pharmacare private members bill? Do we want to do that? How do you feel about that, Mo?
I feel like I want to gouge my eyes out, but let's do it. Let's deep dive in. Let's make it happen.
All right. So if you're unfamiliar out there, I'm sure most of you listening are familiar with this particular thing. But if you're not, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP on the federal level tried to or put up for vote a private members bill guaranteeing Pharmacare, universal Pharmacare for all Canadians. This has been a thing that the NDP's been talking about for years. The Liberals have been talking about for 24 years. They've been promising it.
Actually,
And hold on, and then the NDP put it up, and I think the Greens supported it. I think, and this is like not going to be accurate because I didn't really look the whole thing up, but the Greens supported it. The Bloc, the Conservatives, and Liberals did not. There were a couple Liberals that did peel off and vote for it, and there was one Tory apparently that did. And then
fired.
And it failed, predictably. Did we ever think that was passing?
We did not. We didn't.
So
Where's your moral outrage on this, Gladys?
Oh,
so you got some notes there. Were you reading about this?
I did. I read one part of one long paper
Yeah, and then you got a whole lot of notes out of it.
in preparation. It's not a lot. It's some notes.
Your paper's covered in it.
It's horizontal, not vertical.
That means you can fit more notes on it.
You know what? I didn't ask for your opinion on my note-taking skills. The point is, this article that I read, part of, on cbcn.ca, Health Canada blog, said that this is actually, there's been a push for this in some way for 5 decades.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. But the Liberals themselves
yeah,
have been, like, using it as a campaign promise since, like, the 1990s. Like, the late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, 5 decades. And, despite our best efforts, quote, best efforts, we have been unable to provide this for Canadians. Can I just remind you, like, Mars, we're investigating Mars, and then just just chaos and the things that we don't have. But, like, cool, let's do really cool space shit.
I mean, we should be doing both.
100%.
The really cool space shit is really cool. We should be doing it. We learn a lot.
I love the space shit. I do. I'm a fan.
But it does show you what human beings are capable of doing when they want to do it.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Enormous capabilities. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
But then on a daily basis, when I'm like, do I maybe try to get groceries and avoid COVID? Or do I wait 2 weeks and fill my next prescription? That's a real conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like people don't realize that even the Canadian insurance system that's available, you don't get anything with even half decent coverage. Like I have like 2 health plans based on the 5 jobs I work regularly, and I thought I was set. I can finally do all this stuff I've put off for all of my 20s and part of my teens. And there's just nothing covered because there's so many exceptions or so many rules in place that prevents things that doctors prescribe you from being covered. Like, and also one of my jobs is being like health plan administrator. So I hear a lot of things of just like all the things that people are missing or the things that people get prescribed, like very serious issues that just aren't covered. It's so embarrassing. And it's just like, how have we not figured this out yet? Like, who needs to... And also, how do you keep on promising this and not delivering? Like, just stop promising it at some point. That's kind of how I felt about a lot of the promises, like the whole, like, fixing the election rules and all this stuff that people had promised. It's like, stop promising things you can't deliver on. Like, if you're an opposition party, sure, shoot for the moon. But if you're the governing party... stop promising and disappointing people because it makes people even more cynical and frustrated and angry, and then oftentimes that leads them to giving up on progressive politics in general because they think you're the only option out there, and then also they're suffering.
Yeah.
So what else are they going to do?
Yeah, and then they inevitably turn to the right because the right, they're not also not going to do anything to you, but A, they're not really going to lie to you about it. And B, they're going to
they start thinking you're all lizard brain people and stuff like that, and think that the water is poisoned and that fluoride is bad for you.
Yeah, or just that, like, because you do see the conservatives, and Trump did this in the States, and Andrew Scheer and now Toolface McGee does it here in Canada, where they they do in fact speak to working class people. So Toolface, I never remember his name. I just remember the tool part.
Aaron O'Toole.
Aaron O'Toole.
I'm just watching Mo lose it over video.
I think we should keep Toolface McGee. I like that. But like because they will use the nomenclature of the working class all the time. Their entire party politics, even though they are a party for the rich, arguably more than any party in Canada, they still will do this. Like, you see it all the time. Like, because I follow all these conservative Twitter accounts, like official ones, conservative party things, and they're always doing this, like, this like working families, working people, and they've even invoked the term working class, which used to be poison, but now is coming kind of back in, which I think is a positive development in terms of our language and how we use it. But it's being co-opted by the conservatives, and this is why they'll get traction, because the liberals will stand up there for 24 years and make the same fucking 6 promises and then break every last one of them. And, we're all Pikachu face, like, what? They lied to us? What? They were never fucking gonna do it. I mean, this shit dates back to the Red Book, at least, if not further, but at least back to the Red Book of Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin in 1990. Like, this is what they do.
Okay,
this is
I
their
did need
entire
to clarify
thing.
on which Red Book you were talking about, because there is a Red Book that whose promises were all fulfilled.
How dare you speak ill of the original Trudeau? People will have your head for that. Such a great man.
But yeah, and so I mean, yeah, the liberals are gonna lie to you. I mean, everyone listening to this knows that, I assume, and like, I can't even feign shock anymore. I can't even be like, oh wow, yeah, really, you should not vote for them then, because it's just fucking pointless. People are still gonna vote for them. Like, that's just, I think people vote for them and they know they're not gonna fucking fulfill the promises. Like, at this point, it's like, what?
But
what do you
Travis,
expect?
the NDP is too radical. You can't have the radical NDP socialist, communist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, hoaxist take over.
Well,
Think of Hoaxia.
Can I air my grievance with the NDP now?
Always.
Yeah.
Because their role in this is not what I would consider to be great either. So
Well, I mean, like, is part of the grievance that, like, they just moved this because they knew it was going to fail and they wanted to, but or like, what's your criticism?
well, so that it was a virtue signal because they knew it wasn't going to pass. I mean, they knew it was a way and I don't even necessarily disagree with doing that on its own. I don't disagree with them being like, look how fucking hypocritical this party is. That's not the part I'm upset about, really. The part I'm upset about is that the NDP only cares about power. And it shouldn't shock us because they are a political party.
But they're also really bad at getting that power for a party so obsessed with it.
But here's the thing. They were not established to be a party that went for the prime ministership.
No.
They were established as a working class voting bloc. They didn't really necessarily care. It's like, yes, if they build a movement and get elected off that movement, then grand, great, wonderful. But their entire purpose was to make sure that minority governments were formed that they could hold accountable. And they did that. The party of Tommy Douglas got us health care, among many other things. That's how they did it. They didn't do it because Tommy Douglas was prime minister. You may have noticed he wasn't. They got it because they used a working class movement to put pressure on the government that was in power, and basically held them hostage and said, you're going to fucking do it, or we're going to force you into an election where you're going to lose to the conservatives. And it worked. That was their role for the first 30 or 40 years of the party, and it was incredibly effective. But then they started getting elected. They got elected when they got elected in Ontario, Bob Rae's government, and suddenly they went, oh shit, we might be able to actually do this whole power thing. We can get premiers and prime ministers, like, and now that's what they do. They've forgotten that what they are is, and this is the perfect opportunity. We're in a pandemic. We're in the middle of the largest economic crisis since at least the Great Depression, and they have a minority liberal government. It's the perfect opportunity for the NDP to do what the NDP is good at doing, or what they used to be good at doing, and they don't do it. Instead, what they do is they put up these votes because they think that that's going to get people to vote for them in the next election, and then they'll get power, and then they can be the ones to ignore Indigenous people. Like, that's literally what they do. If they wanted Pharmacare, if they actually wanted it, there's a couple ways they could do it. And the big one is their fucking BC party, because they're currently the majority government of British Columbia.
Yes, they are.
And medication is a provincial issue. So They could, if they wanted to, institute Pharmacare in British Columbia as a model to then transport to other provinces and federally. They have that ability right now. They could do it right now. They could have done it when Bob Rae was in power in the 90s. Saskatchewan has had NDP premiers. They could have done it at any time. And they didn't, and they don't, because they're not actually concerned with doing it. They just want to hold on to power, and they're afraid if they get too radical and actually do anything, that people won't vote for them. Rather than just doing what the fuck is right.
Even though they know that the, like, vote of people who feel disenfranchised is up for grabs, and the right, the conservatives in this country, will seal that up like a vacuum and take every single last vote.
They know how to do politics, unlike the fucking NDP.
They're
like,
so
goddamn
organized. I mean, I hate them. It's vile, and, you know, the guillotine will spare no one. But
yeah, and like,
and that is also how they got the current healthcare system we have in place. It was initially introduced when Tommy Douglas was the premier, and then
in Saskatchewan,
and then it was pushed federally.
Yeah, that's exactly how they did it. So. And the fact that they're not doing that right now when they have a majority government in a prominent province in this country, and the fact that, like, if they really wanted to, they would be building an actual grassroots movement for Pharmacare, which they're not doing. But if they were to do that, we could say, listen, it doesn't matter who the prime minister is. It could be Toolface McGee. It could be Justin Trudeau. It doesn't matter who they are. If you have a grassroots movement of enough people saying this is going to fucking happen, or we're coming to your house, then it will fucking happen. But the NDP is so ineffectual at movement building. They don't want to do it. All they care about is getting the next prime minister. Which, by the way, they're the fourth party right now, so I don't think it's going to happen. Just calling it as I see it here. I don't think you're going to see Jagmeet Singh rise up and get the prime ministership anytime in the next few years.
But the city will be so
How
happy that...
dare you?
The city will be so happy that he was from here and we treated him so poorly.
Yeah.
And then we'll try to we'll try to flip that script and be like, no, he loved it here. This was great. We'll put it on the new Windsor sign. New prime minister from Windsor.
And I have a lot of affection for Jagmeet Singh. He seems like he's a decent dude, smart politician. He's charismatic. He's good at the thing he does. But this is not a Jagmeet Singh problem. This is a Canadian politics problem that has been long forgotten. The NDP needs to look at their own fucking history and realize what they are. They are not a power. They're not a party that is out there to get elected. That happens great, but they're a party that holds the other parties accountable. You aim, like the fucking Bloc Québécois is so good at doing, you aim for a minority government where you hold the balance of power. That is entirely their fucking point, and they've forgotten that. Is now they have that situation, and they don't even really try to use it. It's remarkable.
Something, the best leaders are the most reluctant, something.
Anyway, that's the end of my NDP rant.
I think, well, I think there's a lot more to say about it, though, because it's like, there's a couple different issues with the party. So it's like, there's this whole aspect of, like, them trying to shoot for the moon. And I think a big part of that, is just, like, a push from personalities who really think they can do it. Like, I'm sure Jagmeet Singh believes he could be prime minister, and good on him. But the team that's backing him, like, I feel, from my perspective, it looks like the NDP is ossified a lot. And they're not the only ones. A lot of labor organizations, a lot of social movement organizations are ossifying and kind of falling apart, just like because they haven't renewed and they haven't built their power. And that's not to say that they don't have staff turnover and they don't hire cool people and they don't have new leadership sometimes, but it's more that the organizational structures are ossifying and dying, and it's just the same people. We're just trying to hold things together. And, like, there are some talented people, like some really great people at the Labor Congress, some at the NDP. There's a bunch of people who, obviously, like, there's different types of politics in there, but
labor unions.
There's some people who are trying to do really good. Yeah, labor unions, social justice movements, all these kinds of things. But all these structures are ossifying. So under Tommy Douglas, when this whole thing started, and even before him under the CCF, you had all these like energized folks. You had socialists, you had social democrats, you had communists, you had anarchists, relatively all working together. Surprisingly, even anarchists were involved in organizations. What a shock!
Yeah,
But like everybody was
we'll
kind of
fight.
together.
We'll fight
trying to
after the
push.
Rev. It's fine.
There you go, Kronstadt all over again, right? but but like that's solely like there was a push to get rid of the communists and the anarchists, and then even like the socialists. Like there was a big push in the 70s to get rid of the socialists because people didn't see them as professional. And in this drive to professionalize and build this like professional party, you lost the heart and soul of everything. And like people want more heart and soul these days. That's why like politicians like Bernie are so successful and whatnot.
And why politicians
like-
like Trump are successful, if we're being honest.
Oh, of course. Actually, there's this new communist YouTuber called Infrared that I got recommended recently, and I hate almost I don't hate everything he says, but I hate a bunch of things. Like I have a bunch of disagreements with him, but he made a really good point that like that parties in the modern age are not mass parties like they used to be. They're not masses of people. They're like corporations,
Yeah.
and they're run like corporations, and they have infrastructure, and they just facilitate that infrastructure, running a campaign or whatever. And I thought that was a really good point. Don't follow Infrared, like unless you are willing to put up with some
I'll
like
just
nonsense.
scribble out that note.
Yeah, you can bleep the name too. But yeah, some communist guy made that point, and I thought that was a good point. Yeah, I did think that was a good point, because like it's so true. Like parties just run on these platforms that are really well designed to have input from members and whatnot, but then there's no ability to make it happen in a way that's achievable. And then also the other thing that I really think the NDP needs to work on is like the internal solidarity, because people just fight all the time in the NDP. Like with the Liberals, at least you can say, and even the Conservatives, they're all on the same page relatively. Like there's internal beef in the Liberals too,
Like,
and it's
what was
vicious
it?
and nasty.
Yeah, Silly and Cesar Chavin might be
So good.
motherfucker, do you know who you're talking to?
That made the rounds. I saw it on TikTok. It
Yeah,
was on YouTube.
The difference with the Liberals is that they have their internal conflicts, and they generally stay internal unless you're a woman of color. And then, like, the Liberals are so fucking
Yes.
terrible to you that you end up leaving the party and speaking out against them. But shocking, Liberals are racist. Who knew? But the NDP, you're right. It's very like public, and I think some of that needs to happen because there needs to be more of a recognition that the NDP is the closest thing we're ever going to have to a political vehicle for the working class. We're not going to start another party that's going to rival the NDP and the Greens. The Greens are liberals who like trees. Like that's it. So we have the NDP. They are, and they have in the past been an actual vehicle for working class power. They can be again. So like some of these fights need to happen, but it's like, I'd be worried that if we stop fighting and all got in solidarity with the NDP, that they would just drag everybody to the right, like they've been doing for the past 30 years.
They are orange liberals a lot of the time.
Yeah, opportunists who failed in the Liberal Party. Percy Hatfield.
And I mean, none of them are... None of them, even the NDP, even question things that the three of us, and potentially some of these listeners, grapple with every day, which is like the function of and lack of survival ability within the capitalist system. Even the NDP are not questioning that.
No.
And you're not going to have... I mean, at this point, we're so far from an actual rev, but you're not even going to get within, the realm of it if you're not beginning to point yourselves toward that and to take strides to complete those larger goals.
Yeah.
And if you are, like, catapulting back toward this, quote, center, ever moving toward the right, we're losing ground. And by
Yeah.
not questioning it or even beginning to set up an infrastructure for that, they're gonna get left behind.
You got to point the ship in the right direction. The incrementalism is, good and useful for left-wing people if the incrementalism is pointed at the right goal, right? If it's pointed just a little bit off of that goal, then it's useless because it's just going to end up circling back over to the liberals. But like, if you point it at the right thing, that's why, like, personally, I'm against things like universal basic income because I don't think that points the ship in the right direction. But, things like Pharmacare do in fact do that, right? So, like, Pharmacare is an incrementalist thing, but it will save lives, immeasurable lives.
Save money.
It's actually cheaper. The fiscal conservatives, I think that's probably why that one Tory voted for it, because he probably saw the studies that show how much money the province or the country would actually save by doing it. And yeah.
Well, I actually do have a stat on that from the one article that I read.
Oh shit! Let's hear it, Gladys.
That Canadians spent $34 billion with a B, billion dollars on prescription medication and Pharmacare individually in 2018. We're now 3 years out. That's 3 years out of date. $34 billion. That is the second largest healthcare expense outside of hospitals and includes the cost of doctors. We are outspending at an alarming rate the cost of actual care and experience and education for the staff than we do for the actual medications, and that most people don't actually fill those scripts. This article said, again in 2018, 3 million Canadians don't even bother to fill prescriptions because the cost is prohibitive. And they would then have to cut food and heat or take out loans in order to do so. And I know I'm one of those 3 million.
Same. Yeah, I'm supposed to be on medication for ADD, and I haven't been able to afford it for for 6 months. But as soon as I got kicked off the university plan, I can't afford $390 a month for fucking medication.
Best healthcare I ever had was in university in grad school coverage. And if anybody is taken part of that, it's not great coverage.
Not great.
It's not great.
No, it's not great.
I rate, like, right now, and I mean, if we're including dental in this Pharmacare, which is potentially a whole other conversation.
That's not even on the table
I
currently.
have put off this month, just a general checkup and cleaning. I have put that off 3 times because I cannot afford the $150 quote to go get my teeth cleaned before we talk about filling cavities and all of the other mess, coupled with 30 plus years of no health care.
No dental care, yeah.
No dental care,
Yeah,
no health care.
I've had tooth infections that I haven't been able to take care of. It's the worst fucking thing in the world. Ev right now, one of the reasons Ev isn't here is because she's been struggling with a tooth infection. I hope that she's okay with me saying that. I'm sure she'd say it if she was here. But like, where she can't fucking do anything about it.
No.
She literally just has to be like, well, I'm gonna like white knuckle it until the fucking nerve in my tooth dies. That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
And you just see, like, everybody's got these home remedies of like, oh, if it's not that bad,
Clove
put
oil.
some garlic on it, put some clove oil on it, do a saltwater rinse. I was told
People are digging through their medicine cabinets for fucking antibiotics for it.
we're sharing meds. Like,
Yeah.
not that, you know, for legal reasons, I've not shared medical
no, I would
prescriptions
never
that
do that.
are not mine.
Allegedly, in a video game.
In a video game. Yeah.
You know, to make ends meet. Like, and this is the very real situation, and the audacity of us to ask for this or to think that it's something that we should have as Canadian citizens.
Okay, I'm gonna shut you up for a second while you fix your
Yeah,
mic.
100%.
Yeah, sorry. It's fine. Just make sure you're talking into it and not over it. There you go. That's probably good.
I don't know. I think that just shows the passion when you throat the mic and just be like, let me tell you something about a Pharmacare.
Yeah, I've got a lot of feelings about it.
It's important. Feelings. What do they say? Feelings are more important than facts. 90% of the time.
They are actually. That's true.
That does.
Facts actually are feelings. That's the actual quote. It's facts are feelings.
Do you have any more thoughts on Pharmacare or the ineffectual bullshit politics of this country? Either one of you, Mo?
Yeah, I mean, I've been putting off a lot, and I finally managed to save and parse up enough to finally get my wisdom teeth out, and it's just costing me an arm and a leg, and I'm just like, and every appointment was like, oh, well, you probably should have done this like a billion years ago.
Yeah,
It's also
I
like,
did the same thing.
yeah,
Same.
I was in my 30s when I got
it wouldn't
them
have
out.
hurt at all.
Yeah, actually, no, I wasn't.
Hey,
I
welcome
wasn't
to the
quite.
club.
I wasn't quite in my 30s. I was like 29 when I got them out. I should have had them out when I was like 17.
Yeah, I think I was 24, 25.
Look at that.
Yeah, there you go.
And the recovery for them gets worse as you age.
Yep.
So if you haven't had them out yet, Mo, Prepare yourself.
Well, and I had like mine were like through the gums. That's kind of gross, I know, but they weren't hidden.
Yeah.
They were impacted and out, and so I had cavities in them because you can't clean them properly. It was fucked. My mouth was in pain. I couldn't even eat solid food for like a year. It was fucked up because I couldn't afford to get them
They
out.
can wreck your other teeth.
They are.
Can push
They
your
did.
teeth and start damaging
Yep.
them.
Yeah, they did do that with me.
Yeah.
I've the problems I've been having with my teeth the last 6 years since I've had them out. That's literally been because of the wisdom teeth.
Yep. Some of the
Yeah, they're gonna figure out if that's a thing after. I don't know if it is yet, but we'll find out.
They do say sometimes your teeth will move back a little bit after you get your wisdom teeth out, but the older you get, the less likely that is, and mine never moved.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the kind of thing that, like, I know that there are people in the NDP. You could probably even say, I'm comfortable saying a majority of people involved in the NDP, whether it's elected officials or just like riding association members or whatever, are in agreement with us. If they were on this podcast, they'd be like, yep, 100% in agreement. We need to do something about that. But the way that they think you need to do that obviously does not work. and there's this weird refusal to try to do anything bold, to try to do anything that might actually get people not only to vote for them, but just take them seriously as a voting bloc. Because, I mean, the Bloc Québécois, say what you want about them, they're incredibly effective at the thing they are designed to do. And the NDP needs to be that, but instead of for white French people, it needs to be for working class Canadians and, you know, Ontarians or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, working class is probably the best way to put it. But I also think it's kind of like, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's like you have to figure out your purpose, because like if these folks, like, I think the main thing is exactly the strategy question. It's like, even if you believe in it, if you don't think you can win, because I have heard this a lot, and not only among the NDP, but in like other social circles, where it's like, we haven't done the work yet and we have to build up, and if we do this radical stuff, then we're just going to lose because it's going to alienate people, and then we're going to lose, and then nothing's going to happen. But it's like, where did Tom Mulcair get you? Because when you mentioned Percy Hatfield, all I could think of is like, that guy...
Mulcair is a better example. Percy Hatfield is only going to mean anything to people in Windsor, but...
And he's pretty well liked.
I don't know anything
here.
about him. Yeah, like, I don't know anything about him, but I love him. I love his mustache. I love his hair.
Oh, the mustache.
Hey, brother, how's it going, you know?
I'm not here to debate the mustache. I'm all for the mustache.
I always thought he was just like a labor guy. I think he's a labor guy, but either way, Tom Mulcair was the milquetoast of milquetoast, centrist NDPer that you could possibly find in the history of the NDP. Like, there's probably other more, and yeah. So like, I don't, where Tom Mulcair got them like right to the goalpost and then tripped. So like,
well, actually, Leighton got them right to the
Leighton,
goalpost.
he rode Leighton. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Okay,
I mean, they went with Mulcair purely
that.
because he was from Quebec. And that's where they had made all the gains under Leighton that put them in a position where they might actually do something. It was because of Quebecers voted for the NDP, the Orange Wave in Quebec. And so they thought by installing the most prominent NDPer, or dipper, hate that fucking term, but whatever, in Quebec, that was going to do something. But, you know, Leighton was a centrist.
He was.
Leighton was a centrist. Leighton was the one who took out socialism from the party's guiding principles. He was a centrist, but
Leighton was a centrist, but Leighton was really good on being able to voice progressive politics in terms of like anti-war stuff and like stuff for students, stuff for workers. He was really, really good at that.
And he was a good politician.
He was personable and engaging. Mulcair, looking at and listening to Mulcair makes you fall asleep with your eyes open.
Well, and it sucks because he was like Angry Tom, right? When he was a Liberal member of Parliament for Quebec, or MLA, whatever they called him there. He was in the Provincial Liberal Party. I think it was Provincial Liberal Party of Quebec. Yeah. But he was definitely in the Liberal Party at some level. He was known as Mad Tom because he was like out of his fucking mind. And it was like, even with his centrist politics, I think if he had shown that, it probably would have been good. I think people would have responded to it. Like, yeah, we're angry and this guy's angry too. I like that.
I mean, bring it. I'm angry. I rant all the time.
I want to see anger.
I want to see a politician who is as angry about the abomination of our country as the rest of us are. And if you're not, I just don't have time for the niceties and the placation, and I just don't have time for it. I don't have energy to
It's
devote to it.
got to be a blend of both, right? Like, but you can express emotion. I think that's actually one of the things that Bernie Sanders was, what Bernie Sanders really good at, right? Because Bernie Sanders, like, when it was called for, when he needed to, he was like, the billionaires, you know, he was right into it, right?
Grandpa
and like
Burns.
and people like, regardless of his personal politics, again, I don't care if these people are good people, even if their politics are perfect, they just have to be moldable to the movements that get them in power. That's it. I don't care otherwise. I don't care if they're bad people. I don't care if they're bad at politics. I just want them to listen to the movements that get them elected. That's it. That's what politicians are. They're tools. That's it.
And Bernie's been pushing that boulder up the hill for 35 years.
To an extent. But even Bernie, he'll betray us, right? You got to hold him accountable. Without a movement, he's just another politician. He might be the best one in the United States anyway,
Right,
even
yeah.
though he's right wing of any fucking Democratic
of
Party member
any
of the
of us.
60s. Well, he's right wing of any Democratic Party member of the 1960s. Like, he's a right wing New Deal Democrat, you know?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
anyway, ranting about many things.
But on that note, sort of, tangentially, on Canadian-American relations, though, sort of, I'm going to take it. The last time I'm going to bring it up, this article. It says, like, because we are so, especially in Windsor, but particularly Canada, the U.S. relations, right? We suffer from being so close to the U.S. because the bar is under the ground. And so if we are limped on the ground, dragged over it, it's seen as a success now. And so in this article, it says, every country, presumably in the world, that has universal health care also has prescription drug coverage, except for Canada. They started that. That's the first paragraph. And they don't even mention the U.S. And I wish they would have expounded on that a bit, because I think it is so fundamentally important to not compare ourselves to the lowest fucking common denominator.
Yeah.
I can
think
see it from my house.
Most Canadians are, like, pretty aware that the U.S. healthcare system is fucking garbage, right?
Right? But
So, like,
but by proxy of proximity, we are better. And I'm like, I'm so
Yeah.
tired of that rhetoric. It's so dangerous. Compare us to, you know, I don't know, European countries, they're not perfect either.
compares to England,
But
which
England,
is probably
like
the worst one.
NHS, like,
Yeah.
you know, you want a healthcare system that's more robust, that is better able to take care of its citizens, that provides pregnant people full baskets and, you know, a litany of services for free because you're expecting a new life. We don't do that. Like, oh yeah, you get maternity or paternity leave, parental leave.
55% of your
60% of your wage for 12 months, and if you want to extend it to 18 months, you have to maybe get a note from your employer and see if it's okay. Like, we should be comparing ourselves to where we want to be as a threshold, and not next to the closest stone's throw shithole country.
Yeah. Like I've said on this,
You tell
like
him,
I've said on
Gladys.
this podcast.
Thanks, Mo.
I've said on this podcast many times, the greatest gift to the Canadian ruling class is the proximity and existence of the United States.
100%.
That's it. Like, if it weren't for the United States setting that bar below the goddamn ground,
We would do so much better.
people in this country would be fucking infuriated.
Yes.
They would be infuriated.
Would they though?
They wouldn't get away with this shit.
Would they?
Well, maybe I'm wrong. It just seems, if you tried to pull this shit in most European countries,
They would laugh at you.
they'd be more than laugh. They would set the fucking roads and streets and buildings on fire. Like, it would, like, you in France.
I mean, I'm down for it. I'll be militant. Let's burn it to the ground.
Like, you think
I'm
you
cool.
could do this shit in France?
No.
They'd fucking go to the goddamn prime minister or the president's house and burn it to the fucking ground.
I mean,
Here.
I think we need to do that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Bring the fight to them.
But I think that's my kind of the issue I'm raising is that, like, I think we all kind of idealize this mythical Canadian society that, like, actually cares about people and isn't complacent and doesn't, like, destroy everything all the time. And like, it's sort of like there's this concept, there's this political concept in America called the other America. That's like, represented by all those figures that are like the progressives, that are like more like European, I guess you could say, in terms of their politics, like Ralph Nader and all these people who like
social
actually
democrats.
genuinely care about people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all those basically socialists in America. But like, there's an other Canada, and like we're kind of represented in it. We're like, oh no, Canada's this beautiful place, and the golden rule, and we take care of everybody, and we care about everybody. But like, much of Canadian society is just very complacent, and it's just like chill, and in their suburban, like, and I mean, like, I'm in a suburban hellscape, I guess this is technically. What is Central Windsor? Is Central Windsor a suburban hellscape? This area is probably a suburban
It
hellscape.
depends.
It depends.
But anyway, like, yeah, like all these people are in their suburban hellscapes making relatively good money. The fact that Windsor has so many people making so much good money, that's such a shocker to me. Growing up in like deep Windsor, like West Windsor kind of thing, and kind of just like seeing how like this is a city where people should be the most caring, but like at the end of the day, like the working class is shrinking. Like, I don't think poverty is shrinking, but this idea of the working class is shrinking, and people's ability to fight is shrinking significantly because they're just working all the time and can't deal with their health problems. Like, we were talking about chronic pain earlier. How many of y'all have ever gotten a massage? Did you know that people like get massages for chronic pain and that actually helps? I have so many friends with chronic pain issues that can't even see like anybody to take care of it. And we're just supposed to like make it work. And it's like, how are you going to fight in a revolution if you're tired and your back hurts all the time and you're frustrated at work all day and you hate your job and you hate everybody you work with?
I got just before the pandemic, I think I got 2 massage therapist appointments to try to help recover an injury.
First time in how many years?
Oh,
Ever?
all of them probably.
Yeah.
Look at that.
It was great. I can really see why people dig it and want to continue to do it. It makes you feel better. You know, you stand taller. You're like, oh, that's what that feels like, to have a body that doesn't ache all the time. And then, you know, I can't afford to do that. That was money out of pocket because I don't have health coverage. It's $100+ a session to the place that I went, which was, I'd say, good, but middle of the pack. If you're doing that weekly, as is prescribed, you're looking at $500, $600, $700 a month just for massage therapy, on top of any other practices or medications or Pharmacare that you are potentially prescribed for those ills.
Yeah.
Which is caused by, you know, the lack of all of these things in other areas and being pushed to work 15 jobs.
And that's not to even begin to talk about mental health. And
Not
I mean,
at
we
all.
did the episode, was it 2 weeks ago now, with Pinzer B.
Yes. That was a very good episode. It was hard. It was a heavy
Or
episode.
3 weeks ago now, actually, because we did the Durham region one after that.
Best episode.
Durham.
Best episode.
we couldn't hold it
on
together.
this
But
podcast.
like, you know, I've known Pins for a few years, and the amount of the manifestation of physical symptoms that come out of not being able to address her mental health issues because of poverty, it's crazy. It's crumpling her body into an S. You know, this is why poor people die in their 40s and 50s. This is why. You know, I mean, like, and so again, I come back to that rage of, like, I mean, and I wonder too, because I think you're right about Canadian complacency, but I think that complacency is partially, at least, driven by the United States' proximity and existence, because they're the opposite of that, right? You can say a lot of things about Americans, but complacent ain't really one of them, right? They might be out of their, they might be like, you don't know what side of the political spectrum they're going to come from, but like America has a history of protest. It has a history of unrest. It has a history of this shit in all kinds of different directions, conservative, progressive, you know, and Canada just kind of sits up here like, wow, look at this crazy shit going on. And then we have maybe eventually we follow them, right? We follow them into whatever they do, which is why I say all the time that, like, we ain't getting shit in terms of socialism in this country until the United States has some social democratic safety net. Like, that's why I was pulling so hard for Bernie Sanders, because if Bernie Sanders wins the presidency, it opens up the field of permission for Canadians to do something similar, because that's always what we do. We just, like, we go by what the Americans are setting as an example, and as long as we keep ourselves an eke above them, then we're cool. Yeah, at least we're not them, right?
And it's the proximity to the U.S. and the design. When we split, I mean, going right back to how we split from England versus, just to get some historical on you, like in the way that this country was developed, in its very slow asking for permission. Is it okay if we kind of do our own thing, but like we'll still give you shout outs and you can still like have some power here, and we're gonna do it slowly because we're not that angry older child that you already fought with.
And we're not the indigenous folks that we're doing a real good job of making sure don't have a voice.
We're like you, but we're just gonna peel it back slowly. Like, we totally appreciate you and everything that you did, and don't cut us off, don't make it hard. That becomes the foundation of the government that you set. We don't want to cause ripples. We don't want to be them.
Yeah.
We other ourselves. Yeah. And then that gets built into being, what is Canadian? It's defined by what you're not. You're not American. You're not British. Yeah. Historically, right?
And you're not indigenous.
Because
you're of the Queen.
Exactly. And when you do that, all of those weird politenesses and niceties and like bullshit just fills the space, and that's what you are meant to be and how you're meant to represent. And don't raise your voice ever to anything, to anyone. Speak very nicely, be quiet, and you'll get the job done. We've all learned on this situation, that's not how it works. And sometimes you have to be militant, you have to be loud, and you have to be willing to lose and put it all out there in order to get what you want.
Yeah, but we won't do it till the Americans do it. We just won't.
Which is ridiculous, because I'm actually sick of being nice, and I quote unquote, and I'm sick of like trying to placate and play around with people and try and make sure that everybody feels supported and all that nonsense. Like, not that it's nonsense to support your community, but it is nonsense to just like try and work with people whose fundamental belief, if your fundamental belief is like, I don't want to save as many people as possible while I'm on this earth, I don't want to be nice to you, and I don't want to work with you, and I don't want to hear about your strategy and your brilliant strategies and all this that never work and never will work and always fall apart after a couple years. I just want to do stuff that'll help people, and that's what I want to see from other people. And if you're going to try and slow things down and be like, actually, we don't want to help people. And some people are really blatant about it. Some people don't want to help. They just want to do their own thing. They want to personally benefit. Just say so that I can go do my own thing and not deal with you and think that you're someone who actually cares about stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we can help you, but only if you deserve help. You can't just get it. What is this? You just want to get help because you're like a person? I mean,
I'm so tired of that shit. Like, and you see it. The thing is that the liberals are more honest about it than maybe we're giving them credit for too. Because while in campaigns they will say literally anything, when they're in government they're pretty transparent.
Yes.
They'll say these things like, well, no hardworking Canadian should have to maybe lose their home. The thing being the hardworking part. So if you do lose your home, well, it must have been that you weren't working that hard, right? Because then that covers them, and it's like a very slight little thing. Or they'll say things like, they'll do everything toward the middle class. Yeah. Which they're acknowledging. They're telling you there's a class below them that we don't give a fuck about. They're pretty honest about that shit, and that's why I think the conservatives, when they've been literally replaced the words middle class with working families, fuck, like, this is dangerous. This is how they take hold. This is literally how fascists do it. I'm not comparing the Conservative Party of Canada to fascism. Not yet. But, like, this is how that happens. This is how the right convinces, quote unquote, regular working people to vote for them, to vote against their own interests, because they actually use the language and the nomenclature, whereas the liberals never do. And the NDP...
And that's a theme that I know you touched upon a lot on this podcast, is when you're looking at that language, is particularly the liberals in this case, and every hardworking Canadian and all the families and the middle class, all of these qualifiers, who's left out? The usual suspects, right? Yeah. People of color, people with mental health issues, people on ODSP, people on OW, people who are unable to work. That does not mean that you are not a functioning member of society. You
that
are.
You're not valuable.
Your ability to produce for fucking capital is not your worth as a human person, and we are not protecting that, and the liberals are not protecting that. And like you just said, they're not trying to, but they sugarcoat it just enough so people really easily forget, and they think that if you're not surrounded by it, if you're not in the world, or if you don't have people in your life who depend on some of those other poorly funded programs, you don't have to think about it on the daily. And so you think, yeah, maybe on the whole the liberals are doing all right. I think they're doing enough to continue to get my vote, while you slowly drift into a coma to the point now that you maybe, or someone who is in your circle, is unable to produce for the system. And then you're like, oh shit, I can't survive on this. They can't survive on this. They don't have what they need. They don't have medication. They can't get around. Poor people die because of it. And the liberals just sugarcoated enough to get away with it for 50 years.
I mean, they put it in their calculations. They know a certain amount of poor people are going to die as a result of their liberalism. They just don't actually give a fuck.
Yep.
Did you spill something over there?
No, I think
Also-
it was my phone that dropped.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Mo.
Also, the conservatives. No. I was just gonna say the conservatives are basically fascists. Like, there's like such a high fascist like penetration of that party that like literally you've got the Christian fascists, you've got the brown fascists in there. There's some brown people who with some scary views in the Conservative Party. There's some POCs, there's some BIPOC folks in there with some scary views.
Usually their
Like
class
alt-right
interest.
Discord fascists.
Usually their class interest
Yes,
is a little
always.
different than most people of color. I've noticed.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the article. There was an article about this big young PC guy who was in Hamilton, and he had like gotten really high up in the party and connections in both the federal and the provincial, and then it turns out that he's like an actual neo-Nazi who's been on neo-Nazi podcasts. And it's like this guy was just vaulting up and has like his own crew of people that have infiltrated and been in the Conservative Party. They definitely didn't get rid of any of them because they don't know who they are.
Right.
But that penetration exists. Like not all of them went and followed Bernier into the People's Party. Some of them stayed and are doing hella
Well, they know
damage.
where their home is, right? In the same way that the quote unquote far left, which I think all three of us are in, we recognize that if we're going to have a home in a political party in Canada, it's going to be the NDP.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that we support everything they do or that they represent us. Same is true of that other faction of actual fascists, is that they may not like appreciate, they may not like a whole lot of mainstream conservatism. They probably have a lot of the same sort of complaints on the other side of like them not going far enough to their direction, but they still have a home there. They still have a place where they can slowly massage and influence that party, and I think they're much better at it than the left is of doing that with the NDP. So that's real dangerous.
We've seen how that plays out.
Yeah. So we're at almost an hour. So I wanted to touch on a couple other things. First thing can just be quick, because we haven't got him on the podcast yet, and I want to eventually. But so I don't know if Gladys, if you caught you didn't catch it, the
No.
Fifth Estate Black on Campus. Did you catch it, Mo?
I got a bit of it. I need to finish watching it. It's open my browser. I've been waiting for this to drop for 2 weeks now.
Yeah. So the second half of the Fifth Estate's latest episode details 3 different stories of black folks on university campuses that have experienced severe anti-black racism. And the first one of those 3 was Jordan Afolabi, who we've talked about on this podcast and detailed his story in an earlier episode. In Racism on Campus, Racism on You at U Windsor Part 2, I think.
Yeah.
If you want to go back and
Okay.
listen to that one, I don't remember what episode it is, but it's somewhere in there. And so that story was detailed on CBC's The Fifth Estate and aired on national television. So that's the biggest exposure, I would argue, that Jordan's had with his story so far. So if you are listening to this, go and watch that, because all 3 stories are heartbreaking and fucking awful, and detail just how pervasive anti-black racism is, not just on campus but in society. And Mo, what did you said you haven't seen much of it yet, eh?
No, but I'm super familiar with the story, and working in student unions and like student organizations outside of student unions, I've seen this happen at so many campuses. I've heard testimonies from various campuses. The attack on black students, indigenous students, but in particular, like the anti-black racism at not only Ontario universities, because I've seen it happen in other provinces too, across the country, is just absolutely shameful. And it's like there's the one side of it where like we all participate in anti-black racism at some level and need to be aware and fight against that, but it's like the institutional kind of like attack on black students is just so unreal. And at the University of Windsor we have a long history of that. And Jordan, we've talked about this before, like Jordan had fought it very has fought it there's been too much labor put on him and other students to have to fight it. But this has been going on
and
for
and
a
as
very
capable
long time.
as
And
capable as he is, sorry, I mean to talk over there, but as capable as he is, that's still had a tremendous effect on him, I'm sure.
of course, it's absolutely horrendous how like these institutions they mess with people's lives. They come out and try and destroy you if you try and do anything to change them or to like or to advocate. And like there's other students I know who have had similar issues. And it's not just the institutions, it's a lot of students too. It just continues to show how racist our society continues to be and how we all participate in it in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And like
It's not
there are
any
people who
individual.
probably think they're so great. It's also just like there's so many people who probably use like hashtag Black Lives Matter or like whatever and use again like progressive politics to mask stuff and then say racist crap or like do racist things or like have and this is like I mean it's always so frustrating to see. Like at the University of Ottawa, close by at Carleton, there's always this kind of thing. There's stuff at Carleton too, but the University of Ottawa always gets way more press about all the bad stuff that happens there. But there's so many universities where this happens, and I mean, like, we haven't even cracked the services at the colleges yet. Like, there's like 20 odd colleges in Ontario that we don't hear about because, like the University of Windsor, they generally have a lower profile, so people don't generally don't make Fifth Estate episodes about the University of Windsor. And things like that. But this stuff is happening all the time, and it's not just universities, it's not just colleges, it's like every aspect of our society and in various departments and whatnot.
Yeah. And it
sucks.
It's interesting too because like the CBC has its own problems with this exact same thing, right? I mean, this is the thing is it's not. There is a bit of an irony in, and I'm not saying that the CBC shouldn't have covered it. I'm glad they gave it some coverage, although half an episode, one time detailing only 3 universities, and like Mo's saying, you could make an entire series on this shit, and you probably should. Because this gives it the impression that, well, just these 3 incidents happened when it's a pervasive institutional problem. But even the CBC, right? Like, I haven't checked in a while. And, like, Asha Tomlinson was the person who did the story. She's black. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of the reason why she wanted to do that story or why she was assigned it or whatever. But how many black reporters does the CBC employ? How many black editors? How many black publishers? How many black executives? It's not going to be many, you know, and they've had their problems. I mean, with Sandy Hudson, when she when the defund the police movement started to happen, and she was just like hoofed off a fucking program because she was saying defund the police as a potential solution, and they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to advocate for that. And it's like, you're the public broadcaster, motherfuckers. Like, what are you talking about? You're not going to advocate for that.
Yes, but whose public are they there to represent?
Yeah.
Not our public.
And I'm not saying the CBC shouldn't have done this, because the CBC, I think, is in the best position of any mainstream media news outlet to do this properly, because, you know, the corporate media is fucking horseshit, as is the CBC, but it's not, you know, there's more room, I guess, for that to happen there. But
they're at the top of the heap rather than right in the thick of it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but like I say, there's no reflection. Like, hey, you know, CBC, we've had problems with this too. You'll never see that on the airwaves. And yeah, it's half of one Fifth Estate episode. I think the whole entire thing is like 23 minutes long or something.
For 3 interviews?
For 3 different stories, which you can do more than that.
That's your teaser trailer for your next 4 weeks
Right.
of the Fifth Estate.
Exactly.
Is what that is. That's
your
your teaser.
I want to see the series now. Like, show me a real investigative journalist thing. Don't just sort of like, because I mean, these 3 people that they detailed, and I don't know the situations of the other 2 very well, But like Jordan has been fighting for this for years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And Jordan has done unbelievable shit in terms of like raising his own profile, putting it out in a way that is accessible to people, that they can identify with, that they can like really see like, holy fuck, just how bad this was. He was really smart about how he did it. He shouldn't have to be, but he was. And so yeah, that one gets on the Fifth Estate. But what about the like just every other person this happens to?
The other people who can't afford or have the, whatever circumstance, sacrifice to go to law school, to have to go to law school in order to better represent yourself and others.
Well, I think he's going to law school anyway, but the point is that like Jordan is an exceptionally
Yes.
like with it kind of person from what I've seen of him. The way that he knew goddamn well what was happening. He wasn't trying to like he knew that's why he was recording everything when it was going down, because he knew what he was going to experience. And I think I would assume most black folks do when they're in those situations, but whether or not they're actually going to pull out their phone in preparation and do all the things that he did to really lay out, this is how I'm going to fight for myself. Jordan's the exception, not the rule, right? So like all these other people who experience this on a day-to-day basis in these institutions just get forgotten, and there's no Fifth Estate story about them. And the way the Fifth Estate explains it, they don't really, it's like, oh, yeah, it's a real big problem. Jordan got screwed. It's like every black student's getting screwed. Anyway.
Which cities?
I mean, even at the University of Windsor, like this year and last year, I think there were like 4 separate cases, even more. But there was 4 that I knew of students raising issues similar to Jordan, not exactly the same, but similar to Jordan, with like either other students or like their faculty or other people just engaging in like really horrible behavior and targeting them. And it's not that Jordan shouldn't get covered. Jordan should get covered, but like and organizations like the CBC with the resources they have should, and like I haven't seen this. Hopefully I'll watch it and see it. But they should connect the history of issues that Jordan and the campaign and stuff that he did. It connected the history of this on the campus to what he was experiencing too.
Yeah, a really
it's
which
kind of
which wasn't really in the Fifth Estate thing, like which again, because he only had like 8 minutes or whatever it was, right? So you can only do so much with that.
Yeah, because he probably talked about it in his interview. He probably gave them a lowdown on what happened, and they just cut it down to 8 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a story.
Another thing,
I gave him the story that we talked about on Racism at U Windsor Part 1, where I talked about the white supremacist in my class that the university just flat out didn't deal with for like several months, and then it escalated. Things like that didn't necessarily directly attack any individual black person, but was definitely like a threat toward the people of color in my class. So that kind of shit, you guys just that just happens.
It's the constant looming threat that people of color or anybody outside what's considered that like.
Right, because it's also trans folks. It's
yes,
also women.
Outside that
it's
heteronormative white middle class bubble, all of the things that the 3 of us all try to fight against and to, pick battles and support people and to better ourselves. Like, a lot of people don't have the ability to do that, and the personal responsibility and workload that is then automatically shuffled off to the most marginalized people who are forced to endure the kind of hardships that Jordan and others talk about and deal with should be used as one tiny microcosm, one little case study of a very, very large, consistent issue. And that's something that you're not going to see. I haven't watched it yet, but I've written it down. I will definitely be viewing it.
Yeah, we'll put a link into the CBC Gem. You can find it on CBC Gem.
That's not something that is going to be exposed or expressed in any complete thought in an 8-minute fucking interview.
No. So it's like CBC, good on you for doing it.
But do it better.
But do
it
more. Do better. I mean, you should have done it years ago. This is not, like it's like I said, it's hard to articulate that. Like, I'm glad it's a national story. That's really good for Jordan. That's really good for the other folks that were detailed. It's really good for anti-black, or really bad for anti-black racists on campus in the sense that it's the beginning of shining a light on it, but it's not close to enough. And CBC and other media need to do better at not just detailing individual stories, but really digging into the systemic aspect of what is going on, not just at universities and colleges either, every aspect of society.
And to provide resources and to use that power and strength to make those changes.
And to follow up on this on the individual stories too. Like,
Right.
are you just going to do a one-off 8-minute story, or are you going to follow up? Because like this is an ongoing thing. I know the University of Windsor put out a statement that was really bad. I didn't really.
I didn't
because
see
of
that.
course their statement was really bad. I didn't see it either, but I know it's out there. Maybe I'll look it up right now.
Yeah. While you do that, so we're running out of time. I don't want to make this a long episode, so we're definitely gonna wrap this up. But there's a few things we didn't talk about that I'm just gonna like really quickly run down. Okay?
Rapid fire?
Yeah. Well, Mo looks for that statement,
Okay, rapid fire.
and just it's really quick because we could do whole episodes on these things. But the budget, which we were gonna do an episode on, but didn't happen because of circumstances, we'll say. The finer notes, Windsor City Council, like all city councils, sucks. They approved an increased police budget while holding the line on taxes. They are increasing their spending because of government money, higher levels of government money that's coming in for various programs.
That they hope is coming in.
But we know that the police are going to get their nice little raise. Their $1.7 million are now, with provincial and other funding resources, are well over $100 million a year in their operating budget.
Well,
Meanwhile, transit is suffering, and they're talking about
Canceling it.
potentially just killing certain things if the pandemic doesn't turn around. So like that's all I wanted to say about it. We can maybe dig into that another time. We both watched part of the budget.
but I mean, it's working because local crime is down. Did you know?
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing.
So it's working.
We'll do that. We're gonna do an ACAB for Cutie episode soon, and we'll update people on that shit. The other thing I wanted to mention, actually, was that it? So the only other thing I had to mention, I feel like there was some. Oh, right. We Trans, which is a Windsor Essex Trans, which is a local group that does like advocacy for trans and non-binary folks, has been vandalized several times over the past few weeks by some fashy motherfucker or motherfuckers, and they have sustained a lot of damage to their building. They are not an organization that has a lot of money, so there's a GoFundMe that will be in the description. If you have some money to donate for them to do repairs and to keep their organization going, then you should definitely do that. That was it. That's all.
Community mutual aid.
Yeah. Did you find the statement, Mom?
Not at all.
I mean, it's probably the same sort of horse shit that they've been saying for years about Jordan.
I mean, has the University of Windsor ever put out a good statement? I'd be hard pressed to think of one.
Well, they have.
Yeah, Jordan had posted about it and created a response. So basically, just follow Expose You Windsor and Jordan's work, essentially.
Yeah,
when I find the statement, we can talk about it. But and Jordan wanted to come on the podcast. I'm sure it just fell through because he's super busy.
Oh yeah, no,
but,
he had to. He was talking to Asha Tomlinson. We can wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
We're small beans.
If Jordan does happen to listen to this, literally anytime, just send me a message. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably good. We're at an hour 20, and I don't want to edit, so let's. You want to? Okay, bye. This is good.
Yes.
This is good, Gladys. We'll have you back on.
I hope so.
We have some things we're gonna.
Seriously.
Definitely keep you on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I've been very excited for this.
Yeah, and if people want to find you,
Thank you.
they can't.
They can't. No.
Because Gladys Shaffley is but a phantom.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Don't do the social.
Don't forget to join the
medias.
Discord.
Yeah, we'll get you in the Discord.
Oh yes, do.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.